When I was appointed Minister for Planning and National Development in the year 2003, I described Kenya as a country of great potential but a disappointing underachiever. And my mission as Minister for Planning was to turn around that disappointment and ensure that Kenya became an achiever. And we did it under the NAC government. And a lot of things that we did then are still being implemented to this very day. When I was campaigning to be governor of Kisumu, I also described Kisumu County as a county of great potential, but a disappointing underachiever. Tonight, I want to say, Kisumu is a county of great potential and a promising great achiever. I say so because I think Sunil Shah should rise and stop producing bread and begin producing chapatis and mandazis. I think that would be a great potential for United Millers. And I also think really that the people who talked on the stage today really inspired us. And I remember as a young boy growing up in Seme, not too far from here, P.O. Box 71 Maseno. I went to a primary and intermediate school. Most of you don't remember what intermediate schools were or are. In the first years of school, the first 8 years, there used to be two systems. Standard 1 to 4 was primary school. Standard 5 to 8 was intermediate school. So I went to Ndiru Primary School and Ndiru Intermediate School. At the end of the primary school, which was 4 years of education, we sat for an exam called Competitive Entrance Examination. Competitive Entrance Examination, which meant you competed for, in an exam, all standard 4s to go to standard 5. In those days, in Seme location, there were only two intermediate schools, Ndiru Intermediate Schools and Ngere Intermediate School. So all the primary school competed to go to only two schools. So the first year we attempted, my brother Agre, my late brother, we passed in 1956. But in 1957, the class we were supposed to go to, there are so many students that the headmaster decided to do what you call a qualification test for those going to standard 5. I was the youngest in the class. I was about 8 or 9 or something like that. And the competition, part of the competition, was to do a marathon around the field 4 times. And some of the people we were competing with were full-grown women, full-grown men. And I remember myself applauding because I never arrived in time. And the headmaster said, no, you are too young to go to standard 5. So you repeat. My brother, unfortunately, was in Nairobi with my parents because he had been attacked by polio. My father was in the army. He's a chaplain in the army, a regimental sergeant major. So my brother went there for treatment, and he didn't attend the mock or the trial test. So he was disqualified. So we was forced to repeat standard 4 in 1957. So we repeated standard 4, and when we did the exam, both of us, at the end of that year, we passed with flying colors. But there was a catch to it, because my father was a clergyman, and he was being transferred from Ndiru pastorate on promotion to Ngea as a rural dean. And in Ngea, those of us in the family who went to stay with him were going to stay with him, and they would just go to school 100 yards away, living with him. But we are both going to standard 5, and a decision had to be made between me and my brother Agre, who was going to accompany my father to Ngea, more or less a boarding school because we were living in the school. So I said, it's me who is going. I must go with that. Kumbe, my mother and father had made a decision that it's me who would stay home and my brother would go. But they never told me. So preparations were being made. My brother, my two sisters were going. I was not being told anything. I waited. I started roasting maize with my cousin and eating it. And unfortunately for me, after eating the roasted maize, I fell asleep. And when my mother realized I was asleep, they called the chief who had a pickup, Chief Melchizedek Nindo, to come and pick my father, my brother, and two sisters and go to Ngea. When I woke up, they were gone. So I started crying. My cousin consoled me. Don't worry, they are going to Ngea. There's no maize there. So we have all the maize to ourselves. Later on, when I asked my mother where I had to stay with her, she said, I have looked at you. You are the only person, if I stay with you here, in the morning, you would wake up, milk the cows. When you come back in the evening, you would again milk the cows and make sure that you cook. So you have the right person to stay here. I said, this mother is so sadistic. But 4 years I stayed with my mother as a day scholar going to Ndiru, which was 4.5 kilometers away. And so we never came back for lunch. Told me one thing, that in life you must struggle to survive. Because what we used to do at lunchtime is go to the river, drink the water, when you're coming back, go to the bush, pick up maperas and fresh fruits, eat, and go to class. There was no lunch for 4 years. Notwithstanding that, my brother who had stayed with my father in Ngea, where they were more or less in boarding, they didn't go through the hardship had gone. When we sat for Kenya preliminary examination at standard 8, we sent people to high school. I sat in Ndiru, he sat in Ngea, but both of us passed to go to the Lions High School. So the day that his letter came home that he was going to Alliance, I picked that letter, boarded a bus to take it to him. When I reached Ngea, he also had my letter. They had confused us. So as I was getting excited, telling you have passed to go to Alliance High School, he also had my letter. You have also passed. So that was the end of a really good episode where my suffering, what I thought was my suffering in intermediate school, produced the same results as my brother who was staying with my father in more or less boarding school in Ngea. Now, wind the clock forwards. We go to Alliance High School, P.O. Box 7, Kikuyu. I went to Alliance High School, and on parade ground, the headmaster announced that this year, the school play is going to be 12th Night, Shakespeare's 12th Night. So those who are interested in acting in the school play, please report to the main hall today at 5. In Form 1, I reported, I want to be in the 12th night. So auditions were done, everything was done, and in the end I was told, you are going to be a curtain boy. You know what a curtain boy is? Opening the curtains. So I said, fine. It always begins somewhere, so I'll be a curtain boy. I was a curtain boy who ended up knowing almost every sentence in 12th Night because I had to be in the play all the time from the beginning to end, opening curtains. I said, very good. So I said, I will persist. So in Form 2, again, announcements was made during the school play. Those who want to be in the school play, go to the main hall. I went. This time, when I acted, actually, this was Othello. And in Form 2, I was cast as the Duke of Venice. I was rising. I started then, we used to have an organization called Alliance Law Students Association. So now we started bringing plays to Kisumu every holiday, acting in the social hall. Finally, we graduated to Garrison Theatre, which used to be at the present Robert Huko Estate. And in my 4th form, I produced a play in Kisumu at the Garrison Theatre. I was rising. Now, when I was in the 4th and 5th and 6th form, I was always playing the leading role in all the plays that were acted. And then I became chairman of the debating society, the dramatic society, the philosophical society in Form 6. And to cap it all, a house captain. Makofi kwangu basi. But acting and producing plays taught me one thing, that speaking on the stage is something so nice. Because get everybody listening to you and you're speaking. What more do you ask for? You have power. And that was my interest in politics. Started with acting in plays. But of course, in high school, there are no elections. So, so I never got a chance to be elected, except in societies, chairman and whatever. But then when I passed Form 6, I went to Makerere University. In my first year, I got elected to the Guild Representative Council, which is a legislative body for students, in my first year. When we went to the Guild Representative Council, we were very naughty representatives, these first termers. We realized that the leadership of the Guild was corrupt. The president and his ministers, because it's a full government, the president and his ministers, with a budget, with an office and everything else, it was corrupt in the sense that there was a trip to the US every year that leaders were taken to through the US Information Service. These guys, rather than open the system to everybody so that the Guild Representative Council could choose somebody, chose their friends, and they went to the States. When they were in the States for 3 weeks, we organized a coup. By the time they came back, the Guild Representative Council had overthrown them. And we went to the university principal then, was not a vice chancellor. I told him these are the reasons why we organized a coup, and agreed with us. So we who had organized the coup, the three of us, were appointed to write the new constitution for the student body. Myself, a guy called Grace Bakulumpagi Wamalwa, and another third person I can't remember. So we wrote the constitution, which was passed by the students. And then the two of us, Bakulumpagi and myself, decided to run for the Guild presidency on a constitution which we had written. You are talking about rigging. So we knew the constitution so well, and that is when I learned the art of alliances. So I analyzed the composition of the student body, students from Kenya, from Tanzania, from Uganda. Uganda, they were rivalries between Abanaba Buganda and UPC. I said, well, I look at Abanaba Buganda, I saw they're more than the UPC, so this will be my allies, isn't it? Wamalwa was from Buganda, so he thought he could get Abanaba Buganda. But I went and convinced all the leaders of Abanaba Buganda that if you just go for Wamalwa, you will not win. So come with me. In the end, when the election was held, I won in all halls, including the sick bay. Makofi 10. Wind the clock forward. Now I'm teaching at the University of Nairobi. After going to graduate school, 1977. Kenyatta is in power. He has detained Ngugi wa Thiong'o. He has detained all kinds of people. He had killed Kariuki. So we said, this man cannot be a good president. We must organize from the university and see how we can have a democratic system in this country. So from my lectures in the university, we started telling the students, the history of all hitherto existing society is a history of class struggle. Have you ever heard that sentence from Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels in the Communist Manifesto? The history of all hitherto existing society is a history of class struggle. The oppressors and the oppressed, the landowners and the landless, the powerful and the powerless. So we who are powerless, we must organize to change government in this country. That's where my problem started. And I made a mistake one day of going to the Soviet embassy to pick up books from Progress Publishers. A few days later, the special branch came to my house. Leta vitabu. They took 9 cartons of books. They went and locked me up at this police station near Kenyatta National Hospital. And there I was interrogated for 3 days, going through those books. One of the books was very interesting. It's by Edgar Snow, called Red Star Over China. which is a very harmless book. But they saw Red Star over China. You are a communist. After 3 days, fortunately, they let me go. I said, go back to the university. Don't teach these things again. I went back, now I was worse. I told the students all that had happened. Another 1 month, I was locked in again. This is 77. Then Kenyatta died and Moi came in 78. Now we celebrated. This Moi is going to be a better president. Little did we know that we are going from the frying pan into the fire. Within 1 year, Moi would start locking up our lecturers. But what is worse is that in 1980, as my wife was pregnant with our first child, in the month of July, we organized a demonstration in Nairobi to protest against British sale of arms to South Africa and to protest the murder of the Guyanese intellectual Walter Rodney. Demonstration was peaceful. No stone was thrown. This annoyed the government immensely. So when we went back to the university, it was on a Thursday. On Friday was a glowing editorial in The Nation. The university has come of age. Demonstration and all of that destructive. We thank the lecturers who organized this. We were very happy. Saturday, I'm working in my office. I get a call from a journalist, Peter Karidhi. He was working with a paper called Nairobi Times, that big thing. Calls me and said, oh, Professor, we have been told that you people are organizing a coup against the government. I said, where? We are not. No, it is said that you people are planning to overthrow the government. So, well, if there's such a plan, I don't know about it. The next day, in this Nairobi Times, a huge headline, lecturer denies plot charge, which means that I knew about the plot, but I'm denying it. My wife read that and said, now, we are finished. It was on a Sunday. Very early in the morning of Monday, I saw 4 long blue Peugeot cars which belonged to the special branch. They came into the house, collected another lot of books, took me to the CID headquarters. Now are there for 4 days, being interrogated on a daily basis. The students went on strike. They were not going back to classes. So I was released because they needed students back. I went back to university. Students went back to classes. But then Karidhi was called to explain his story. He implicated me even further. They came and collected me again, back to the same place. Now, when I was there, the student went on strike again. So there was a dilemma. Do we keep this man here or do we release him? So I was released early in the morning and told, go straight to your class. So I went straight. Taught for an hour. As I was coming out, going towards my office, my sister Susan was waiting for me at the entrance of Gandhi building. So when I went there, I said, look, let's go home. I said, why? She was just crying, let's go home. So we went home, and she told me, my brother Charles, who looked exactly like me, 10 years old, 10 years younger than me, had been killed in Mombasa. We say, how? It is said he was on a ferry and just jumped off the ferry, which was not true. So I dropped all that politics at the university, went to Mombasa to look for my brother. For 3 good weeks, with the support of the port police, we were looking for bodies around Mombasa. So whenever anybody surfaced, I would go and look. It was not him. We enlisted the services of a British Marine Corps to comb the place. They told us, according to the science of this place, if a brother died on this day, he should have appeared on this day. And in this place, there are no sharks, so it cannot have been eaten. So the story doesn't look true. So one evening, as I was, after one of those searches, I was sitting at Castle Hotel. Remember Castle Hotel? Having my white cup beer on the counter. I was very kind of depressed, so I was just drinking beer. So I had the car of my host outside. So at one point, I decided to go to the loo, as you know, when you're drinking beer. Safari, Mokwana. But the mistake I'd done is I left my mug of beer on the counter. So when I came back, sipped it 2 or 3 times, I started vomiting, which means it had been poisoned. So I ran back to the car, drove home. When I went home, my host saw me in very bad shape. She was a nurse. Her husband was working at the port. Took me to bed, took off the shirt. I started sweating. She gave me some drugs to put me to sleep. And she called the doctor. Apparently, I learned that later. By the time I wake up, it was past midnight. Then they told me what they had done. So my host told me, look, your brother is gone. Tomorrow morning, wake up, go back to Nairobi. We don't want to lose you. When I went to Nairobi and we explained to my parents, my mother and mother just said, take us to Mombasa. We just want to go to see the scene to be satisfied that Charles is no more, which we did. Came back. The trouble did not end there. With the birth of our daughter, almost every night I would get prank calls. So it was very unstable to have a young family, this kind of problem. Isitoshe. In February, 81 now, we have been invited to go to Harare with my friend Michael Chege. Harare, Zimbabwe had just become independent, to go and present a paper at Zimbabwe Institute of Development Studies on the land question in Zimbabwe, to tell us the experience in Kenya. Little did we know that this invitation had been picked up at a special branch. When we arrived at the airport, our passports were confiscated and told to go back to town. That was in 81 February. I decided enough is enough. So I went to Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. We used to work together. I said, Jaramogi, this is too much. I would like to leave for some time. He said, just go. You know, even Joseph went to Egypt, you know. And later he's the one who saved his family, you know. So Jaramogi gave me the green light. But I could not travel because I didn't have my passport. Several journeys to the immigration office yielded nothing from February to August. Fortunately, in August, I received a telegram from UNESCO. Said, we have identified you to go to Mexico to help El Colegio de Mexico start an African Studies Center. So I took it to my head of department, who was a friend of mine. I took it to the dean, Michele Mugo, who was a friend of mine. They all approved. Now I took it to the vice chancellor, Joseph Maina Mungai. He said, but we are not due for a sabbatical yet. You get sabbatical after 5 years. I said, no, Mr. Vice Chancellor. The situation I'm living in is untenable. If you leave me here, I may die. Give me permission to go so that I can be safe. He said, okay, I'll give you permission if you get your passport. Now, you know, in Luo they say you are between a Kuruga Sumbe, the devil and deep blue sea. I kept on trekking to Mutua's office, the chief immigration officer, until one day when I went there, there was an Indian who was his deputy. He saw me coming and said, why do you come here every day? I said, because I'm looking at my passport. He took me to his office. We talked. He said, leave it to me. Come tomorrow, I will make sure you got your passport. So this Asian is the one who saved me. I went to him as a deputy to Mutua. So he took me to Mutua's office, told Mutua, help this young man. Mutua took a Bible from his drawer and started reading me the Bible. I didn't know a thing he was talking about. I didn't even listen. So in the end, he said, let us pray. We prayed. I didn't even care about the prayer. So when we said to pray, he went to his drawer, took the passport and gave it to me. I ran to the university, got my INA, got my release. Within a matter of 3 weeks, my wife was also going to France, fortunately, for a course in journalism. We left the same day, left our 1-year-old daughter with my mother-in-law in Jamhuri's estate, in Jamhuri school. While she was going to France, I was going to Mexico. When she finished her course in France, after 3 months, she came, picked up our daughter, and joined me in Mexico. That's how I ended up in Mexico. While we were in Mexico, I was supposed to come back after 6 months. Unfortunately, in 1982, August, when I was due back, the coup took place. And I was on the list of those to be detained for organizing the coup. So, my wife had actually come back to Nairobi to prepare for our going back. Now, the story of how my wife ended up coming back to Mexico, his passport was also taken. The story of how he ended up getting her passport and joining me is another story, which I can't tell tonight. But she came and joined me, and we stayed in Mexico. God is great. It's in Mexico that a little girl called Lupita came into this world. And I think that God blessed us and blessed her. And what I was doing at Alliance High School, she has done at a global stage. So all I can say is the following. Kisumu, rise up. What we have done with H.E to ensure that in the world of art and culture, we reach to the highest pedestal is to promise that we're going to build you people an arts and cultural center of world standards. Between the 5th of May and the 9th of May, I am bringing here world-renowned artists, 2 of them, to have an audience with you on what kind of arts and cultural center we need in Kisumu. They told me when I met them in Hollywood, do I say? They told me when I met them in Hollywood in February at the screening of Black Panther. Wakanda oye! So when we met in Hollywood, they told me, never begin thinking of building an arts and cultural center by putting brick and mortar together. It is not the brick and mortar that matters. It's the ideas and aspirations of the people. So they are coming here between the 5th and the 7th of May to have a dialogue with you artists, seated like that. You will play your music, somebody will play your hangla, but we shall talk for a whole day to find out what arts and cultural center we need for the great county of Kisumu. It is only after that that the brick and mortar drawing will come in. One of the persons coming, I don't want to reveal the identity, somebody who in the whole of the Western Hemisphere is recognized as the best architect. But he's an African. You cannot believe it. Some of the best buildings you see in Washington or New York is that person. Now, he said that he didn't go to the Berklee School of Music in Boston. My son, Peter Jr., is a player of saxophone. He also got an opportunity to go to Berklee School of Music, but he went.